everybody. Welcome to the Abroaders Travel Podcast, your weekly meetup with thousands of entrepreneurs, hustlers, creators, nomads, ninjas, wanderers, and world changers, all seeking to build the skills and connections to live a life without borders. If you want to learn more about what we do or download our entire podcast archive, check out the website, abroaders.com. Happy Wednesday morning and welcome to another episode of the Abroaders Podcast. This is number 136. Today is Wednesday, August 17th, 2016, and I'm here with my good friend AJ. We are in Harbert, Michigan.
Harbert, yes.
We are headed off to Colombia, to Medellin, the day after tomorrow. Actually, we'll be in the air when some of you guys are listening to this podcast. And today we're going to talk about the United Award Chart and specifically what you can do now that you're not going to be able to do after October 6th. They announced some big changes last week, and there's still plenty of time to take advantage of the rules as they stand right now. And there's some pretty cool trips that are going to be going away. So we're going to talk in a little bit more detail about how you can take advantage of that. We've also got some big news, not necessarily positive news, from Citibank about some new restrictions regarding who's eligible for sign-up bonuses. So we're going to jump into that as well. And you'll be able to find show notes and links from today's episode at abroaders.com/United Now.
Yeah, man, we've got some good stuff today. We've got a lot of United stuff in this. We're going to talk about, like you said, maxing out United's current program. United's got a couple of promotions we're going to go over.
Yeah, the promotions are perfectly timed.
Great timing to stack on top of that. British Airways has a transfer promotion. Like I said, get a touch on Citi. But yeah, and you did not mention something that's very exciting and is good news is a very big sign-up bonus is coming in August very soon, and that is the Chase Sapphire Reserve. So Chase had been wanting to compete with Amex Platinum and the Citi Prestige card, you know, the high annual fee but high benefit card. And so it appears that Chase is going to join the big boys with that card, and it's going to open up with a 100,000 point bonus, which is massive. 100,000 Chase points is a really big deal. Based on,
I don't think Chase has ever given away 100,000 points for any card, at least not without very, very targeted signups.
Yeah.
And so this should be a huge opportunity to stack some United points. And it looks like, now, first of all, not all the details are 100% out about the card. So there have been a couple of releases. Some people have posted to blogs with information that's sort of insider information or stuff that's coming out. So the official offer has not been published, but it looks like, as things stand right now, not only is the sign-up bonus going to be huge, but we're also looking at some big benefits that'll make it really easy to handle that $450.
Yeah, the fee looks like it's going to be $450, but they're going to give you $300 in travel credit. So that's, you use your card on travel and it automatically credits that to your card.
Yeah, and so American Express Platinum, you get it, it's an airline fee credit, and so you can't use it towards flights, you can't even use it towards taxes and fees with award bookings. You have to use it for things like close-in booking fees or change fees, stuff like that, checked baggage fees. Citi Prestige did a nice job of sort of upping the level by making it possible to redeem the $250 credit for any travel-coded purchase. And it looks like Chase is going to have the same rule. So it looks like any purchase from a travel vendor, whether that's a hotel or an airline, is going to be eligible, but the benefit's going to be bigger. It's going to be $300. And it looks like that's going to be per calendar year, meaning it may be possible to get $600 of travel money for a $450 annual fee.
Also looks like you're going to get the same lounge stuff that the Prestige and the Platinum gets with the Priority Pass.
With the important distinction that you can bring guests. Looks like it's Priority Pass with guesting benefits. And so if you're like us, we have the Platinum card, and that doesn't let you bring in any guests. So $27, I think, is the fee. And, you know, that's a big pain if you've got somebody that you're traveling with that doesn't have their own Priority Pass card.
Yeah, and I think sometimes it could be more expensive depending on the lounge. But one thing, as far as this Chase Sapphire Reserve offer goes, go to the show notes page at abroaders.com/United Now, and you'll see a big call to action where toss us your email, and then that'll tag you in our email software, and we'll send you a guide when the card comes out on the best way to max out 100,000 Chase points, which, according to our calculations, based on our bookings redeeming Chase points, 100,000 Chase points is worth over $4,000 with what we've done. Some of those are business class bookings, so that pads the stats a little bit. But conservatively, you're looking at well over $2,500. Should be over $3,000 worth of travel on this card alone. We'll also give you some tips on the top credit card benefits, how to take advantage of the $300 travel credit, global entry, and then some general stuff on the lounge access.
So the one sort of gray cloud over all of this is the 524 rule. So if you already have 5 cards open in the last 24 months, it looks like you're not going to be eligible for this right away. But it's kind of interesting because there was a couple of different posts that went out. Some people found a link early. Somebody screwed up at Chase maybe and let a link go out before it was time. And there have been some discussions. It makes perfect sense that this is going to be subject to that rule. But, we're going to wait and see. It's certainly the case that we're going to keep really close eye on whether the 524 rule is being applied. And it may take them, a little bit of time to catch up with that. It's a possibility that there might be a short-term loophole.
And who knows what they're thinking about the math of it, because the other cards subjected to the 524 rule don't have $450 annual fees, and that they're thinking, that's worth quite a bit lifetime value of them, $450 a year. I'm curious to see exactly how they calculate it, but that could be a factor in their decision.
Yep. So definitely sign up for the email, and we will let you know if there are any opportunities. We'll let you know if we see anybody getting approved with more than 5 applications, but definitely if you don't have 5 and you can front the $450, you're easily going to get that money back in the first year of card membership.
Oh, so it's a no-brainer at all. Well, back to the theme of United, we've got some news on this promotion we mentioned. We've got United offering 20% off round-trip domestic award travel. Now, this is a fairly tight window. You got to book by August 23rd. It is not every American city, but select cities, but it looks pretty good. It takes awards that were normally $10,000 down to $8,000. It takes awards that were $12,500 down to $10,000. So definitely a decent opportunity to get a little bit more value on domestic award travel, because that's usually a pretty tough spot to get big value. It's really tough to justify using United, American, or Delta points domestic if you don't have a whole lot of them.
Yep. And keep in mind that United also has lower prices now in general for flights that are under 700 miles, actual miles traveled. So instead of 10,000 for a one-way award, you're looking at 8,000, which is a pretty good deal. But again, be careful with this, because a lot of times you can use Southwest and get a good deal. A lot of times you can use British Airways if it's a direct flight and get a good deal. JetBlue is expanding in availability. So don't jump the gun and redeem United miles on domestic, because there's better opportunities that we're going to get into big time today. We also wanted to mention, so there's a second award sale going on at the same time. This is for travel between August 29th and April 30th of next year. So there's a big travel window. And the promotion has been running for a couple of days now. It only goes through the 22nd of August. So you do need to book these soon. But this is for United Award tickets to Asia. And I believe this is a 25% off sale. So you're seeing prices like United States and Canada to North Asia is running about 52,000 miles round trip. To Southeast Asia, you're looking at about 62,000 miles round trip. So those are substantially lower. The one caveat here is this does have to be on United metal. So
when Eric says United metal, that means the plane on the side of it says United. This is not one of their Star Alliance partners. So
exactly.
That can be a good or a bad thing depending on your sentiment towards United.
I think in economy, this is probably a great deal in economy. It's always nice to get a percentage discount on business class tickets too, but you do have to keep in mind that if you're booking business class, there might be a nice upside to flying on one of their Star Alliance partners. I definitely would rather fly a lot of Star Alliance airlines besides you. All right, next up, we've got a transfer bonus with American Express membership rewards to British Airways, 50% transfer bonus. And so keep in mind that a little while back, American Express devalued the transfer rate. It used to be 1-to-1. Now it is 200 to 250. And so with this bonus, you're going to get some extra miles, but it's not going to look like a complete 50% bonus if you're basing it on the 1-to-1. It still makes Amex better temporarily than Chase in terms of these points. So So normally 1,000 Amex would turn into 800 British Airways points. And now 1,000 Amex is going to turn into 1,200. So a little bit of a boost definitely can be useful if you've got good opportunities with British Airways. I know I was looking at a couple of direct tickets, one from Sao Paulo to Bogota. That's only a 12,500 point redemption. So that's going to bring the price down to around 10,000 points.
Yeah.
And, definitely worth it if you've got direct flights on
Yeah,
British
definitely,
Airways.
though, make sure you've got something in mind before you move the points because, you'd much rather have your points sitting in Amex if you're unsure because maybe you move them to Air France. Maybe you move them to Delta. Maybe you move them to Singapore.
The exception is if you have a ton. And we've got enough. We earn a lot of Amex membership points. So I would say I'm thinking about maybe transferring because, every year we probably go through 50,000 British Airways points.
Sure.
And so that would be, it's a little boost. It's probably worth moving some points if you have a lot. But like AJ said, I would say our average redemption value for British Airways is around 1.4 to 1.5 cents per point. And with Flying Blue and some of their other partners
over
Singapore, it's over 3.
Yeah.
Now those are a lot of business class redemptions too, but just base it on what you want to accomplish.
Yeah. I guess what I had in mind is Wolf. A friend of ours, he sent me a text message with a picture of the promotion. He's like, should I do this? And I thought about it. Well, you've got 120,000 Amex points and you're thinking about doing this and that. Probably not. Yep. You're probably going to send your Amex points straight to somewhere that's not British Airways and you're going to use them all for a flight for you and your wife to Europe like you plan on. So, yeah, but still, like Eric said, if you got a bunch of Amex points, not a bad move to shuffle some over to British Airways, take advantage of that, and then redeem them when you can.
And especially if you have a history of using British Airways.
Yeah,
the reason I want to do it is we consistently do it, and it's a pain in the ass when you look at it and especially it's harder a lot of times with Chase points because those are more difficult to acquire. And so, it's do I really want to spend more Amex points even though, now's your chance if you want to get some Amex points converted. Okay, so next up, we've got some bad news. It's not terrible news, so don't hit the panic button, but Citibank has introduced some new application restrictions. Looks like these are going to apply to all Citibank cards. So essentially what they're saying is that you can no longer get another card that earns the same type of points if you've had one of those cards within the last 24 months. And the really, really strict thing on this to me is that it's not just whether you've opened a card in the last 24 months.
When you closed it.
It's when you close the card. So, for example, if I had the Citi Thank You Premier card and I wanted to open the Citi Prestige card because it's got some great benefits, if I've had the Premier card anytime in the last 24 months, I'm not eligible for the sign-up bonus. And there's not a ton of Citi cards that double up on the same type of points. Right now, there's a few cards that don't really have sign-up bonuses, but if you look at the American Airlines portfolio, it's really the Platinum Select. There's the Gold card, there's the Bronze cards, but neither of those have sign-up bonuses. And so it's not such a big deal with that card, but I can definitely see it being an issue with the Thank You branded cards and maybe some of the hotel cards. So you just got to kind of be aware. There's now sort of a bigger advantage to closing out Citibank accounts if you think that you're going to be applying for another card that earns those points sometime in the future.
Let me put you on the spot right here. So you're going to close a Citi account because you want to start the clock so you can get a bonus as soon as possible. What is your strategy for closing a Citi card? Do you try to move the line of credit? Do you just say, screw it, I'm just going to close the card so it's closed? How would you go about it?
Well, so here's the jury's still out, and there's a little bit more information that you need to know because typically the best strategy is to move the line of credit to another card, or even better, convert the card into a no-fee card.
Sure, right.
And so there's some situations where you might be able to convert a card that earns American Airlines miles into a no-fee Hilton card. But I haven't really heard of that. For most cases, if you have a Platinum Select card and you want to convert it to another product to keep the age of your account open, they're going to offer you a Bronze card. And that does earn American Airlines miles. Right. So that may not solve your problem. So it may be a situation where you actually have to close that card. One thing that you do want to do before you close the card is move your line of credit to a different account that you have with Citi. So if you're gonna hold on to your Citi Thank You card, then move your American Airlines credit line over to that card. The second thing to be aware of is this puts you in a really tough spot if you want to double down on thank you points, because one of the benefits of the co-branded cards is you get your your sign-up bonus, and Citibank immediately sends American Airlines your miles. And those are in your American account, and they're subject to the expiration rules of American Airlines. Right. And so that means that you've got 2 years or 3 years or whatever it is with American, and all you have to do is have some account activity. And so you can buy a magazine, you can donate some points, whatever you do, you can keep those miles alive. With the thank you points, if you have to close one card to open another one and get a bonus later, you also essentially need to transfer out all of your Citi thank you points, because those will expire after you close the card.
Isn't there a grace period?
There's a grace period. It's like 60.
So not much time. You got to do something with your points if you close the card.
So it's more generous. I mean, a lot of if you close all of your Ultimate Rewards cards, you lose your Ultimate Rewards points. So it's a little bit more generous. But anyways, be careful. I think the big thing is with Citibank, you're probably better off just acquiring the cards one by one. In the most cases, there's just going to be one really good sign-up bonus available in each type of currency. There's some exceptions. And one little silver lining here is you do have until the 28th of August to make this move. Right. Because the rule doesn't go into effect until then. So you've got at least a week, maybe 2 weeks, for you to apply for any new Citi cards that you want and double down. So I think the thank you Premier and the Prestige is sort of a really good spot. If you've already got the Premier card, the Prestige now's probably the time to make your move, because after the 28th, you're not going to be able to get the bonus on that card.
And one more thing about that, speaking of Citi, we've got a link that we don't want to just completely toss wide out in the open and get it killed. But if you go sign up and create a free account, no cost, create a free account at the app. You can just go to broaders.com and you can see the create an account here. We've actually got a link to the Citi Advantage card with a 50,000 point sign-up bonus, which we haven't seen anywhere else. So
it's like a footer link. I don't know where it came from, but on the American site, it's 30K right now.
It's 30K, and if you Google it, it's 30K. So we can get you access to 50,000 AA points after 3K spent over 90 days. So if that is something that strikes your fancy, create a free account. It is no cost to you, and we will get you that link.
Awesome. All right, so we do have a couple of other links in the show notes here that just talk a little bit more about the new Citi application rules. And so if you're interested in sort of understanding and getting some additional breakdown of how it works, head over to the show notes of broaders.com/United now. All right, so a couple more items here before we jump into the core content. There is an Alaska bonus. You want to talk about the Alaska bonus for a minute?
Yeah, so we've got a bonus on buying miles, and this goes through September 29th. So you've got a little bit of time to reverse engineer this. This is the same as any other buy miles promotion that we mention. You really don't want to spend a bunch of money and tie up your cash and miles that you don't know what we're going to do, because things can change. But you've got some time to look at some awards that may look good for you.
And I don't know how I feel about this, man. It's a mystery bonus. You can't tell me what the bonus is going to be?
Yeah, but it looks like people are pretty confident it's 50. It's 50,000 if you buy between 40 and 60,000. 50% bonus. So yeah, this is kind of bonus. So it's bogus. It is a mystery bonus, anywhere from I think 30 to a 50% bonus. So that's kind of carnival trick, gimmicky. However, though, 1 Mile at a Time wrote up a post on it, and he went ahead and he bought 60,000 miles. He got 50% bonus. And so that
thanks for diving on that grenade, Ben.
Yeah, that leaves him with 90,000 Alaska miles, and that actually comes down to 1.97 cents per point, which for them is pretty good. And Alaska's got a really unique program, so buying Alaska miles is actually more appealing than buying the other types of miles because they're tougher to earn via sign-up bonuses and spend. And they've just got some unique partnerships. They're kind of the Lone Ranger. They're non-alliance partners, or like just really, they've got some really good partners, and their chart is really good too, especially in premium cabin stuff. But I don't know. I mean, would you consider doing this?
Well, I'm pretty poor, but if I had a bunch of money, it's definitely worth. If you're going to buy a ticket in business class, take a look at this. Otherwise, probably skip it and move on. And definitely, I would way rather spend $450 on the annual fee of the Chase Reserve card.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Than buying miles at this point.
One final thing, though, that is good to note about this promotion is, you can only buy the miles in chunks of 60,000. However, you can come back and buy 60,000 miles as many times as you want. So if you've really got something in mind, if let's say you're going to, travel with you and a friend or your partner for a couple of business class flights and stuff looks good on Alaska, then you could consider going and buying up a bunch of miles and saving some money.
So in other words, the maximum number of miles
you can buy 60,000 at a time, but you can come back and buy.
Okay. You can also buy 10,000 miles. It's not required that you buy 60.
Okay. Anywhere from 10,000 to 60,000 is the promotion. But yeah, you could buy 1,000,000 miles if you wanted to.
All right. Let's get into the core content. We got a lot to cover here. Today, we're going to run through 6 different things that you should know about booking a United ticket today. This is generally applying to round trip awards, and this is before October 6th. So we're going to do a much more in-depth episode coming up, talking about what the new rules are going to be, help you sort of decide whether this is a good idea. United has by far the most generous routing rules, with the exception of maybe Alaska, who allows stopovers on a one-way, but I still think United's rules are quite a bit better overall. And so for right now, there are a ton of huge opportunities. Now, before we get into what you can do now, just in case you're really trying to figure out whether you even need to worry about this, a quick review of what's going to change on October 6th. And then again, we'll get into this in more detail on an upcoming episode. But coming up on the 6th, they're going to make it so that round trip awards must start and end in the same region. We're going to get into how that differs from today in a sec, but things like you can leave the United States, go from continental US, fly to Asia or somewhere else, stop in Australia and come back to Hawaii. Mm-hmm. That kind of thing is not going to be possible. So if you start in the continental US, you got to come back to that region. Second thing that's going to change is that stopovers have to be in the destination region. So if you go to Europe, whatever stopover you book has to be in Europe, and then you go back to wherever you started. Right now, you can have a stopover in Europe on the way to Asia. You can have a stopover in Japan on the way to Australia. So there's tons more options if you're looking for a truly global kind of trip. And the last one, this is kind of small, but it can be a big issue with flights that are on a partner airline that are in premium cabin. They're going to make it so that you can't change Star Alliance awards less than 24 hours before departure. I think that's still going to kick in regardless after the 6th. So even if you book your ticket now, so I don't know if it's a big deal. And also some fees are changing, but we'll get into the details on that coming up. Let's talk about what you can do in the next month and 2 weeks before the United ticket.
So the main thing that you mentioned that is just so attractive and generous compared to the other programs is with a round trip award international, you can do 2 OpenJaws and 1 stopover, which is really nice. So a stopover means anywhere over 24 hours, and you could technically do a stopover with United for 9 months if you wanted to. That's a pretty extreme case, but
the only rule on stopover is that the whole trip has to be completed within a year of the first flight.
Right.
So if you're booking one of these tickets, you could technically have a stopover of 11 months if you planned your trip right.
Yeah, and let's get into what an OpenJaw is, because that's something that just you don't know unless you've really taken a deep dive into award travel or just the airline industry. So an OpenJaw is you fly into one airport and you fly out of another airport. An example of this would be flying from Los Angeles to Paris, and then you fly from Barcelona to wherever it is that you're going. So you connect the dots. You buy a bus ticket, a train ticket, you buy your own flight, you get from one airport to another, and you fly into one, you fly out of another.
All right. So at this point, United Airlines allows a stopover and 2 OpenJaws. And so just to sort of clarify how that would work with 2 OpenJaws, let's say you start in Detroit, you fly to Paris, you do your stopover there, then you continue on to Southeast Asia, let's say Bangkok, and then you fly home from Japan, let's say Tokyo. Yep. So from Bangkok to Japan is your first OpenJaw, right? And so that OpenJaw, you're going to get a flight, you're going to take a boat, however you want, the long boat ride, but you're going to get your own transportation between Bangkok and Tokyo. And then when you fly home, you don't have to go back to Detroit. So that's where the second OpenJaw comes in. You could fly home, and you could actually fly back to Hawaii if you wanted to. Even though it's a different region, you could fly to Canada, you could fly to Mexico. You don't have to fly back to the same region. And so there's some really interesting opportunities there. So the second rule here, and again, we're going to cover 6. So number 2 is that the stopover doesn't have to be in the same region as your destination. So we already touched on that. And there are a couple of examples, a couple of exceptions here that are important. I'm not even going to dive into the actual list of exceptions in its entirety because there's sort of a lot of them. But there's a really good post by Drew from Travel is Free that explains what the exceptions are. As just sort of a general rule, it seems like poor little South America is most of the exceptions. You can pretty much go nowhere via South America. But there's a lot of ones that you can do. All right, so a couple of examples of how this might work. You can fly from Los Angeles and have your stopover in Bangkok, and then your destination be Australia. So that would be routing to the Australia region via Southeast Asia. A second one is that you could fly directly from the U.S. to Australia, which would be a nice flight, but kind of boring. And you can also stop in Oceania, which is the region with all the islands. So it's going to be Fiji, it's going to be Bora Bora, and you actually save some money by stopping in Oceania on the way to Australia. We're going to get into a little bit more detail about why that is in a second, but just in terms of the routing, you can transit those regions. Another one is that there's the Middle East is one of the more expensive regions, and almost anywhere that you stop on the way to the Middle East, whether it's Europe or whether it's Africa, you can stop in Asia. So there's a lot of ones that are permitted. The Middle East is kind of the opposite of South America, it seems. And there's a few of those regions that'll also lower your price. But even if it doesn't lower the price in miles, it's still really nice to be able to transit from one region and destination in the other one.
The third tip is you cannot OpenJaw at your stopover. So, for example, let's say you're going from the United States to Asia and you're going to stop over in Europe. You cannot do your OpenJaw in Europe. You can't fly into Rome and then fly out of Munich. If you fly into Rome, you're leaving from Rome to Asia. So here's how...
And nicely, there's a lot of cheap airlines in Europe and a lot of trains.
No big deal.
You can go all over the place and come back to Rome after you're done exploring Europe. And again, like you said before, you've got that opportunity to do like a 3-month stopover if you have vacation time.
I mean, we've taken advantage of this a couple times, and we did some generous European stopovers, a month or so. I mean, the first time we flew into Munich, we did Oktoberfest, then hung out, then went to Prague for a while, then went to Berlin for a little while, then went back to Munich for a little while, then went on to Bangkok, and then OpenJawed home from Ho Chi Minh City. Okay,
so no OpenJaws at the stopover point, but feel free to travel around and enjoy yourself. Next up is the most powerful zone.
This is a funky one.
This still makes my head spin, man. Okay, so this is what I was alluding to a minute ago when I said that it's possible, not only in terms of legal routing, to stop at Fiji on your way to Australia, but it also could save you some points. And the reason for that is that United has a really strange way that they rank their regions. And certain regions are more powerful than other regions. So in other words, one of the things that is sort of most important in determining how much your ticket is going to cost is what is the destination. And you would think, in most cases, the destination sort of in your head, the furthest place away. But you just have to be aware when you're trying to book these tickets that United doesn't necessarily use that logic. And so sometimes a place that's actually on the way physically to where you want to go is sort of a logical stop in the middle is actually treated as your destination. And so I think the bottom line here is if you really want to work at this and kind of get into some advanced stuff, there are at least 10 different opportunities where stopping somewhere lowers the price of your award ticket. And I'm going to put a ranking list in the show notes. And I'm afraid to even do this because not only are some regions more powerful than others, but it all depends on where you start. So I'm going to put the list of the most powerful regions from the U.S. But just know if you're starting in Hawaii or you're starting in Japan, the list is all screwed up.
Yeah, I mean, I guess think of this like, let's say you're like speaking Russian or Chinese and you know nothing. Like, throw any logic aside because it doesn't matter. Just United has these funky, weird rules, and it is what it is. And why they did it is a waste of your time trying to figure out. Just if you want to dive into it, figure out what the rules are and deal with them because they don't make any sense.
And by the way, unless you're just like we're talking about this because I think it's super interesting and fun, but if this doesn't sound fun to you, hire us to book your ticket and we'll save you 20,000 points because like truly it is complicated. But just be aware if you do want to get into this and like do a search and start trying to figure it out. I've got the list of the most powerful zones from North America, and then I've also got a couple of posts where Drew from Travel is Free goes on a deep dive
good
and
stuff.
Explains how this stuff works. So, and the best thing about that is there's lots of examples. I don't want to read off one after another, but in written format, you can kind of look through it and see like the general ideas of, okay,
it only takes an example or two to grasp the concept and get beyond the logic of it. And then you just got to understand what the rules are.
All right.
Number 5 is there is a limit to how many connections you have with your itinerary. So all this really means is you are at the mercy a little bit of the routing and a little bit on the availability. I believe it is, 4 connections you get?
Yep. And it depends again on the region. So there are some regions that you get more connections. But for most regions, you're going to get 4 connections in each direction.
Yeah. So, I mean, an example, you're not going to go from Detroit to New York to Barcelona to Helsinki to St. Petersburg to Tokyo to San Francisco to Detroit. Like you're going to have to find a better itinerary than that.
All right. So be aware. And I guess, obviously you're probably already trying to avoid connections because this is not stopovers. This is connections. So This is like the annoying, you have to get off the plane and sit in the airport.
An interesting way to get, not interesting, but a pretty straightforward way to get around that is if you run into having too many connections is just switching your OpenJaws. Fly into somewhere else and then connect the dots because you can maybe find availability there to another city. Maybe there's a more direct path.
That's a really good point. Another resource we can post in the show notes here is the Star Alliance route map. So lots of times there's different routes that you can use to get from point A to point B. And if it's an availability challenge that you have, if you're looking at extra connections just simply because you can't find a direct flight from Hong Kong to San Francisco, even though there's tons of them, they're just not available and they're making you stop in Tokyo and then in Vancouver and all that crap. Look at this route map because it'll tell you all the ways that Star Alliance can get you somewhere. All right, number 6 is that you need to remember that not all Star Alliance partners show up on United's website. And so there's a couple of other places that you can look. Aeroplan has a few partners that are not available on United and also just has slightly different logic about the way their site looks for routings. And so you can probably consider using Aeroplan and also ANA's website. Those are the free tools that you can use to just see what Star Alliance availability is out there. Singapore also has a Star Alliance search, but it's really crappy. But if you're looking for Singapore flights, it's great.
Yeah.
So Singapore website can do that. Just be aware that if you're using United miles, especially in business class and first class, Singapore doesn't show you the same availability as United can book. They give their own members more seats than they give to United. And then last but not least is Expert Flyer. This one honestly is really awesome. It is a paid service, but you get 5 days free. And just a little insider tip that I didn't tell you is that you get 5 days free per email address. So if you can find one of those services out there that gives you a new email for free, you get more days with Expert Flyer. But it's a great tool. And if you do a lot of searching, it's worth paying the $10 a month. But, use that as sort of a last resort. Or if you get frustrated with some of the other websites, there's a bunch of Star Alliance partners that Expert Flyer can look up their availability.
Yeah, man, that's good stuff. So we covered the 6, and that's pretty much. I think that's pretty much it. But yeah, this is really, if you've got United miles or you've got Chase points, you could transfer United, and you've got some travel planned within the next year. This is really something to consider, especially if you're heading to Asia. I feel the holy grail of this is the Europe stopover on your way to Asia and OpenJaws.
Especially with the 25% discount. It'd be interesting. Asia's up there on the list of most powerful regions. So for the most part, you're going to have Asia supersede other destinations and be the destination, and that may mean that you get that 25% discount. So interesting to see. If you guys have questions or follow-ups, again, we're going to do more about the changes that are going to take place on October 6th in an upcoming episode. But if you've got follow-up questions about this, I would love to hear them. Send them to Eric or AJ at abroaders.com, and we will get back to you and answer the question on an upcoming show.
Yeah, excited to hear from you.
All right, everybody, that's going to do it for this week's show. Thank you so much for being with us. We'll be back next week from Medellin, Colombia. In the meantime, don't forget lots of good links and resources at the show notes page, United Now. And also, don't forget, if you are thinking about the Sapphire Reserve, jump on the email list. Even if you're already on the email list, put your name into the box there so that we can send you the update, let you know what's going on with that card. And if you'd like help picking some cards, and especially if you want that American Airlines $50K offer that we dug up in some footer link on the American Airlines website. It's not an affiliate link, but it's definitely the best one out there. So sign up for the Abroaders app, create your free account, and we'll get you some good recommendations to help you earn the right points. Thanks a lot. We'll see you guys next week. Hey, Abroaders, don't be shy. Hop over to the website and join our email list for exclusive travel hacking content. If you like what we're up to, the best way you can support the show is by leaving us a 5-star review on iTunes. Lastly, we would love to hear from you, so send your show feedback to Eric or AJ at abroaders.com. We will see you next week.